Hi everyone, I'm Adam Waite, Minister of Music here at Montview Church in Denver, Colorado, and I'm so pleased to be joined by two of my friends and colleagues. First, Andy Halladay, the Director of Music at St. John's Episcopal Church in Boulder, and then Mary Louise Burke, the Associate Conductor for the Colorado Symphony Chorus. They've both been very helpful in our preparations for our spring concert this year, which is Morton Lauridsen's Lux Aeterna. So, I've gathered Andy and Mary Louise here today to talk about the piece a little bit and hear their thoughts and invite you to attend the concert on April 27th. Andy, let's start with you. You know, I know that for a fact that you happen to really love this piece of music. What about the Lauridsen really kind of speaks to you?
Yeah, I learned about this piece, I think in college originally. I mean, it was still relatively new at the time. I think it was written in the 90s, mid-90s, I think. And I fell in love with it right away. It reminded me a bit of Duraflay's music, you know, how it's chant-based. And, you know, growing up as a Presbyterian at Montview, chant wasn't necessarily the bread and butter of what we had here, although Kuzma certainly had us do some chant here. And chant always spoke to me. And even though this piece doesn't specifically use any specific Gregorian chant, it's very chant-like. And it just really draws you into a spiritual state. I mean, at least it does for me.
Mary Louise, you certainly have worked with singers over the years that also love this piece of music.
Yeah.
What really
That's
speaks to them?
a great question.
Yeah.
Because they do love it. They love singing it.
Yeah.
There's something about the whole soundscape is entrancing. But I had the privilege of working with the Westminster Choir just a few days ago to help prepare this piece in your absence. And we did 3 of the movements. And it just occurred to me as I was listening to them, I just stopped at a certain point and I said, you know, there's a two-edged sword here. You love this piece because it's so beautiful, but I'm telling you, that's what makes it so difficult too. Because it's sort of, you kind of with that chant stuff, you can get into a bit of a trance yourself. And you can undersing, you can under-energize. I said, okay, your first responsibility is every note has got to be exquisite. It's got to be beautiful, every note, and it's a pure sound. You don't honk it out like you're singing the Verdi Requiem.
Right.
There's a beautiful, pure sound. And I said, that's on you to make it sound that easy, but it has to have energy and resonance, and you have to know and love the text, because he really loved the text, and he really sets that text. It was interesting, I read that his second love after music is poetry.
Yeah.
And that just all of a sudden made so much sense to me.
I think that goes to the strength of his music, right? Is how, because he has that real love of poetry, he's able to take Latin, right? The text is in Latin, and he almost treats it like it is his native tongue, right? It just feels so natural in the.
He does, so it feels good to sing, because it's both lyrical and kind of a gracious line, and the very things that can be a challenge, some of those incredible long lines. He loves to do that kind of build, doesn't he? Where it's long line. That can be a challenge for you with breath control and all that kind of thing, but it's also the big payoff, because I tell you, as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it's like, you know, as a singing teacher, I'm hearing like your rib cage is opening or something. There's just an expansiveness to it, but it's a heart opener too.
It blurs the line a bit between spoken word and sung, you know, the way the chant does, right? That it almost feels conversational. In fact, we were talking about that yesterday in singing the 4th movement in church, that I wanted the choir to be a little bit more conversational in their approach. Like the tenors have a motif, and then the sopranos and altos kind of echo it back to them.
I learned about the piece before I sang it. So I fell in love with it from recordings, actually, first. And I remember the first time I saw the music for O Nata Lux, I just hadn't really analyzed it or thought about it. It's so simple looking on the page.
Right.
But when you really connect to that text, it just speaks so deeply. It just expresses so much in something that's notated so plainly and so simply.
Yeah.
I'm struck by, I tell you, with Lauridsen, you can hear 4 measures and you go, that's Lauridsen. There's something, there's a soundscape, something that he creates. And I'm just sort of wondering, as a composer, if you had to write a piece in the style of Lauridsen, what is it? How do you approach that? Why is it that his sound seems so distinctive?
That's a great question. And I think some of it is in the voicing, right? We talk a lot about with the basses, like they hardly have the root of the chord, right? They're often in a first inversion where, they're on the third of the chord, and right, that's the note, right, that distinguishes what the chord is, right? Whether it's major or minor, right? That gives it all the color. And so the basses are kind of not used to being on that note for so much, right? And telling them the importance of, like you always have to sing in tune, but we really have to sing that one in tune. And, I understand that when Lauridsen was introducing this piece, in the composition process and playing it for people, that he would just sit at the piano, right, and play it through. And there are voicings that seem very almost like, well, that's what a piano player might come up with in some of the tightness. To me, I think the really appealing part of the writing is it's almost like Renaissance era meets America, like 20th century American music. And he put it into a blender and out, because there is the melodic lines are chant-like, but then the harmony, right? There's those dissonances within the harmony, the seconds, right? We always talk about the altos singing the
crunch.
second. And, but how that creates that kind of crunchy American sound that we hear in Copland and Bernstein and other composers. He's now like the most performed American choral composer.
Yeah.
He has surpassed Randall Thompson in that, but his body of work is not that big.
No. Yeah.
Right? There's only actually a few pieces, but they're just incredibly powerful works. Yeah, I think it's going to be a great concert, and I'm glad that we got to talk about that spiritual connection, because I think what all of us have felt in the work and what our choral singers are feeling is also what the audience is surely going to feel. And we know audiences all around the world have had this connection with this work in the way that it just exemplifies light, right? All of the movement. We haven't yet really talked about the title of the work, Lux Aeterna, Eternal Light, and he wrote this piece right on the heels of his mother's passing. And it's not a requiem per se, right? But it is inspired, like there's the requiem text at the very beginning, but this choice that he made to use Latin texts that all talk about light.
With the orchestra, I really hear it in the strings. That first note in the first violins that just hangs. It's just like a little pinpoint of light. Yeah. And then, I sort of envision almost just like these little rays of light, coming through clouds, and then it grows, and then it grows, and then it grows, and it grows until it's just this full, big sound.
It's almost like a musical sunrise in a way.
It really is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure that was very intentional. To go with that analogy, there's a lot of, throughout the piece, both in the orchestration and in the choir, there's a lot of melodic lines that have imitation, where they're following each other. And it's again, I envision these rays of light coming through clouds, and kind of echoing each other, or rolling over the hills, at sunset.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think one of the really special things about our performance is that we get to do it with orchestra.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of a rarity when it comes to this work. most people have the opportunity to do it with piano or organ.
Yeah.
But we're fortunate that we've got a really fantastic orchestra too that we're assembling with a lot
With
of
great colors then in the
Oh yeah,
in
the
orchestration.
orchestration just really adds this whole other dimension to the piece.
I think by the end of the piece, the choir has felt like they've taken a musical and a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
By the 27 minutes later, don't you feel?
Oh,
They're just,
yeah.
they're
Oh,
just,
of course.
it's profound.
Yeah.
And when I hear those big builds I'm thinking the choral parts, let's say even in the first movement, the Exaudi, Hear Me, whatever, and then at the end of the Alleluias, at the end of the fifth movement, the word that comes to me is cinematic. So it just sounds like by the end, I think we have just watched a great American movie.
Yeah.
There's just something so powerful in the way it opens, but it's like what you spoke to about the clouds in the light. That's what it sounds like from that first pinprick to
Which is
just
also like such a
expansiveness.
distinctly American art
It's
form,
very-
is the
it
film
feels very
score.
American,
You know, and
American.
Lauridsen,
Yep.
helped start the whole film scoring program at USC.
Oh,
So there you go.
very interesting. Oh, that's
You'll
very
learn something on these
interesting.
videos, I tell you.
Yeah.
At any rate, we hope that you can join us April 27th at 4 p.m., either here in the Montview Sanctuary in person or online on our live stream, montview.org/music. Andy, Mary Louise, thank you so much for
Our
joining me
pleasure.
today. A lot of
Can't
fun.
wait till the 27th.
We'll see you there.